Hello everyone, my name is Ritanshu and today we are going to discuss what is Azure App Services. In the previous sessions, we have seen how to install the virtual machine, what is virtual machines, what is Azure Cloud and all. So a brief introduction was there. And more or less we have seen what Azure is providing infrastructure as a services, because we have seen the creation of virtual machine, installing the software on the virtual machine. Now we are going to cover platform as a services. So what is the basic difference between these two services? In infrastructure as a services, Azure is providing you the infrastructure like physical devices which you can control through the Azure UI. In the platform as a services, they are providing you the ready-made platform to run any application or any kind of a web application. They are providing the ready-made hosting environment. What I mean to the ready-made hosting environment, let's suppose when we have to deploy any web application to the Azure, we were creating the virtual machine, we are going and installing the required software on the virtual machine, and then we are deploying our application. This is the process involved in the infrastructure as a service. But when we are talking about the platform as a service, in that case, we are creating a ready-made environment for application to be hosted. If any application needs some specific OS, specific software, that while creating the web app, Azure is responsible to create that machine and install those softwares. So that's why we used to call that platform as a service. Azure App Service is a fully managed web hosting services for building web apps, mobile backends, any RESTful APIs. So why we need that? What is the benefit of that? Benefit is we can configure for the auto scaling, we can configure for the instance increasing, we can it very easy compared to infrastructure as a service to maintain. Now if you see what all the things Azure App Services is providing, it has a DevOps capability, it has a auto scaling, it has a security features. So let's go one by one. In the web app services, if you just think what exactly you are getting while creating the web app on the Azure, we are creating two things. One is Azure Web App Plan and second is Azure Web App itself. Why this is? And for one type of application, suppose you want to host application which required a Linux software, which required a .NET and which required some other libraries. And in the second application, you want different kind of a OS, different kind of a installed software. Then you have to create a different web app, but it can come under same plan. So first time when you are creating the resource, it will automatically create two things. One is Azure Web App and second is Azure Web App Plan. But on the same plan, you can create multiple apps. Now coming up to what is auto scale up and scale out. So in Azure, when we have created the web apps, there are two things, scale up and scale out. Both are used to enhance the performance. Then what is the difference? In scale up, we are increasing the hardware. If you see in the diagram, we are increasing the hardware when we are scaling up. In scale out, we are creating the instances of the same web app and we are distributing the load to either this or this or this. So performance has been increased by creating the different instances of those web apps, which has the same line of code to execute. In the Azure, we have a UI, we have a configurations through which we can configure to auto scale out. What does it mean? Suppose you have deployed a web app which is currently handling 1000 requests and performance is good. Suddenly, or in any case, or any festivals, your request has been increased significantly, like from 1000 to 10,000. Then the load will be increased on the one instances and you can scale out if the CPU percentage or the memory percentage or whatever is increased. On the basis of that, we can increase the instances so that the request will be distributed to different instances. Basically, Azure app, we are just giving the responsibility to Azure to maintain all the required environments and the software installation to the Azure. Business is only responsible for their business logic and the code what they have written. All the hosting environment will be provided by the Azure and they will be maintaining it. We have to just make sure from the UI what exactly we need and how we want that to be performed. We have a scheduler in the Windows. On the similar line, we had a web jobs Azure was having, but now it is deprecated. It was deprecated in 2009 itself because now web jobs can be achieved using the functions. Azure app is having one more feature like Azure App Configuration. Azure App Configuration allows developers to store, retrieve and manage access to application settings all in one place. It is very easy to set up and simple to use from any application. It gives developer the ability to modify an application's behavior on demand without having to redeploy the application. Application configurations offers different benefits. The most used benefit what we used to see, the feature flag, the complete data encryption, point in time or replay of settings, versioning. So lot of benefits we have with the Azure app configurations. With this diagram, you can understand how exactly it is. We have a Azure app configuration centralized. Using this Azure app configurations, we can just control all those applications which is applicable on the same resources. Suppose we have a 3 web apps, web apps 1, web apps 2, web apps 3, and these all 3 is using the same kind of a configuration. So either we can centralize all these configurations in one app settings, or we can individually assign those app settings to web apps. So it depends on your current project architecture how we are going to use that. In microservices cases, we have a different microservices of the same application installed on the same web apps. For those we need a centralized Azure app configuration. Then we use this kind of a configuration, this kind of architecture. If we have a different apps for which we require different Azure app configurations, in that case for an individual application we will be having the individual app settings or Azure app configurations. We have one more concept in Azure App Services, that is deployment slots. So why we need that deployment slots? So why we need deployment? Let's understand. We have a 2 versions, version 1, version 2 of a same app, and we want to deploy in a web apps environment. Suppose we have deployed version 1 and it has been hosted into the web app. Now we want to deploy the version 2 on the same web app, same hosting environment. In that case, version 1 will not be available for anyone. So in most of the cases, we need a different kind of an environment, like staging environment, production environment, or dev environment. For those kind of environment, without hampering or without giving any delay when switching the environment, we use a deployment slots. How we use that? For an app, we used to create 2 different slots. If we are considering we have only staging and the production. First, we used to create a staging slot, and second, we used to create a production slots. Version 1 we are deploying into the one slot, and version 2, next version which is not tested, we will be deploying into the staging slots. These slots can be switched immediately when you have completed your testing on version 2, and that can go into the production. So switching time, suppose switching time is 5 minutes, or you are required to deploy in the production environment in the new code. So some downtime will be there. But if you're using the deployment slots, while switching the environment, whatever environment is available before, that will be served. What I mean, suppose version 1 on the staging environment and second version 2 was on the production. Now you have changed something on the version 1 and you want to deploy that on the production environment. While switching the environment, Version 2 will be available until unless version will not be converted. These are the theories behind the web apps. In the next session, I am going to show in a practical way what is web app and what all the services it is providing against the web app. Thank you.